Olá outra vez. Portanto, esta próxima sessão vai ser apresentada em inglês, por isso vou aproveitar e fazer a troca e começar em inglês. So this next session intends to turn business expertise into solutions and give people the power to drive the results. This is the primary facility to the low-code platform that Microsoft through the Power Platform. The presentation is going to be made by Carvalho, that leads the business applications practice in Avanade, Portugal, and Kyle Hill, that is the Global Director of Digital Sales and Service with Avanade as well as Business Application MVP with Microsoft. So Kyles and Carlos, the stage is all yours.
Okay. Hello, good morning everyone. So, my name is Carlos Carvalho. I'm the Business Applications Lead for Avanade, Portugal, and I'm here with my colleague and MVP, Kyle Hill, from Global Avanade. So, a quickly brief introduction about who is Avanade. Avanade is a company that aims to be the leading innovator in digital services and experiences by leveraging the Microsoft platform and ecosystem. Avanade was founded in 2000 as a joint venture between Microsoft and Accenture, and across those years we've been awarded a number of prizes and awards, and we are recognized as the world's leading Microsoft service implementation. We are present in 24 plus 1 countries. We are starting our practice here in Portugal. And we hope that we can help some of you guys with the challenge of IT. So the topic of this session is citizen developers, and the underlying message is how can you take brilliant ideas and put it into practice, into applications. And for those of us that has been in the IT space for a number of years, we'll be struggling talking with 2 different stakeholders. We have the IT guys that are very focused on compliance, architecture, and guidance. And we have the business users who don't care anything if it is a custom development, if it is a software package. They have real business problems that they want to solve. And in the recent years, the local platforms have helped to merge these 2 worlds and to facilitate the work for both IT, business, and IT service professionals like ourselves to create this new way to deliver business innovation. So low-code not only unlocks collaboration between different areas of the organization, but also empowers employees and organizations to be more effective and efficient, because it reduces up to 70% of development effort, cost, and time, but not only it brings very, very accelerated return on investment on applications. So, just for sure you have already seen something about the Power Platform. Just to give you a quick overview. Power Platform is the low-code application suite from Microsoft. As you've seen in previous sessions, it's based on a drag-and-drop, very visual interface, and this is frankly what enables business users to be very involved in the process. Okay, so they can really see what is changing in the application. They can do comments. They can really take ownership of the development process themselves. And they can change the look and feel, which is always very, very important. So Microsoft has developed, has made available the Power Platform that lies in 4 main products. So Power BI, leveraging all of the power of data and being able to connect all the existing data sources in the organization. The Power Apps, which is the user interface or front-end platform that allows to create user interfaces, not only inside the organization, but also with recent releases in portals that allows anonymous users to interact with these applications. Power Automate, previously known as Microsoft Flow, which allows to create and orchestrate all of these applications, data, and services into Power workflows that are very easy to use. And last but not least, Power Virtual Agents, to be able to embed all of this business knowledge, logic, all of this data and cognitive services into chatbots, voice-based or text-based. As a backbone of these platforms, we have three very important things. First is a common data service, a common data model that serves across a number of applications, namely the Microsoft ecosystem with Office 365 services and the Dynamics 365 portfolio. Custom data connectors that you can bring any data into your applications, and also recently AI Builder that allows you to embed artificial intelligence into your applications. So with all of this suite, this really enables to cover a spectrum of users. And today we're focused most on the pro dev. But to be very assertive about this, this is as easy as a user wants to create an application from themselves. They have access to data, to controls, to user interface mechanisms that create very simple applications for their own productivity. IT administration has always a role in this because they can create the governance models and the access mechanisms to the data and to the workflows that are used in those applications. And professional developers or coders can also leverage by extending the platform with a number of custom or very specific components into the application. So I will move over to Kyle that will go a little bit on detail how pro coders can really take advantage of the Power Platform architecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos, and good morning to all of you. Just in case you've forgotten, I'm Carl Hill. I'm actually based out of London, and I'm delighted to join you here today. First time presenting in Portugal, and really exciting time. So Carlos has set the scene for us in terms of where low-code and no-code platforms play in the market today. We see that they don't just focus on a specific role within an organization. They target three main buckets. And the idea here is to quickly help organizations solve business challenges. And we're aware, and Microsoft in particular are aware, that you can't just solve it in one area of the business. You need to involve a number of stakeholders, and that's what you see on the screen behind us. We're going to focus a little bit more on the technical side of things, just to give you an idea of how this actually works in reality in an organization. So having a look at where we see Power Platform, and particularly Power Apps, playing a part in the organization. On the screen behind me, you'll see on the top level, they're common scenarios, and we see a lot around extending, about plugging the gaps between an existing system, a line of business, the legacy systems, and the latest and greatest that business are expecting, that customers are expecting, so that we can achieve the outcomes they want. We'll see that you can start off small in a departmental solution, or you can go right the other way and build something mission critical, something that your whole business uses every single day. And we'll talk about some of the stats and how reliable this is a little bit later in the presentation. But know that there's a number of layers here. And we can start off right at the bottom there with a number of connectors. One of the great things, obviously, about the low-code and no-code platform, number of connectors. So we're not facilitating another system with another data silo. We're bringing it all together. During some of the keynotes, and my colleague Juan yesterday highlighted that data really is key. So something we try and avoid as part of this platform is creating more silos. Those connectors help us to bring that data all together. We've got a lot of enterprise-ready functions in terms of identity, in terms of governance, in terms of application lifestyle management. You'll see all of that builds into the common data service that Carlos was talking about, a low-code database that you're going to be able to put a huge amount of structure and metadata behind. Ultimately building up to a workflow layer, Power Automate. We've got robotic process automation, RPA in there, as well as complex workflow. And ultimately, the citizen developer on top there, where we're creating forms, where we're creating business logic. So that's the platform from a technical perspective. let's address something that we all face today, is as we're starting to move to this cloud world, we've still got systems that are on-premise today. How do we include those and make sure that their data isn't a silo by itself, but it's actually part of our business process? This is where the data gateways come in. And this is a great functionality as part of these low-code platforms that says, if you've got a system today, the financial services scenario is a good one because they've got systems sometimes from 50 years ago. How do we get that data as part of a new age, cutting edge process that business want to accommodate? Well, we provide these gateways. What are they going to do? Follow a consistent low-code pattern that just about anybody can do. And we're going to see some examples of this a little bit later on, but essentially it's involving the whole organization. Going back to those 3 roles we spoke about earlier, everybody's getting involved here for the benefit of the business. We spoke a little bit about the Common Data Service. We're just going to deep dive on it a little bit. You can see it's a consistent database mechanism that's provided by Microsoft. Great thing about this, planet scale. Data centers all over the world, reliability, disaster recovery. You get all of those things out of the box with the Common Data Service. You also get a strict data model, strongly typed objects, as well as the ability to leverage the data that's being stored in there. Now, low code is great, but when we're actually able to use low code, generate apps, and then ultimately use that data and apply AI over it, that's where we're really starting to move into the future. That's how we start building the future. So you'll see there with a consistent database and removing those data silos, we're actually able to start achieving these AI outcomes. There's lots of integration as well into your common tools. Anything Microsoft, just about it's going to do. We saw that there's over 270 odd connectors. It keeps growing, plus you can create your own ones. So really, as a data platform, it's just about got no competition. I spoke about AI. Let's have a look at some that you can light up out of the box straight away. You turn this on, drag and drop low code. 4 common scenarios. These are the most common ones we see. It's not limited to these, but these are going to meet the majority of your scenarios. Binary classification, yes or no. If we're in the insurance space, has somebody been in an accident? Yes or no. Okay, quite a trivial example. Scanned a ticket. Is this person registered for the event? Yes or no. We don't need to waste time and people's important time with that when an app can potentially do that. Getting a little bit more complex, let's look at forms processing. A lot of forms and a lot of organizations still process paper today. So if we've got a consistent format for the paper, particularly invoices, purchase orders, those sorts of things, scan those in, we can use AI to automatically process that, read data off the forms and continue a business process. Huge amount of efficiencies that can be realized there if you're processing hundreds of thousands of documents, which have potentially got millions of pages. Object detection, so we've seen some of these examples playing on the keynote videos, I hope you have, from Microsoft, where the case studies around people going partially blind, and we're able to use those cognitive vision services to help them see. Ideally, you can use these in all sorts of scenarios, and we're going to see one just after this, so I'm not going to dive too much further into that one. And ultimately, the text classification. A really good example in call centers here is when a whole lot of people are phoning in, they're reporting problems, and we can process those recordings and start classifying those texts. Do we have a common scenario? Do we have an issue? Something quite topical at the moment and where it pops up a lot is in health. We've got the coronavirus going on. If somebody starts reporting symptoms, the system can automatically start picking those up and say, hey, the agent may not know this, but this is a potential high-risk candidate. And it often happens in health services that they're able to contain these things because people start querying their symptoms, and we've got those texts and those classifications that can help us be proactive and use AI for the good of all of us. So I mentioned we were going to have a look at some object detection. We're using a couple of the videos from the Microsoft keynotes, and these are for actual customers. And this one is for G&J Pepsi, and I'm just going to roll the video. And what you'll see here on the left-hand side is you've got a Power App that we're talking about. This is the low-code platform, and we've got a gentleman there who's going to actually go and scan some of the products. Now, Pepsi are a bottler and a distributor, and what the scenario here is around managing the audit of their stock. Is the actual stock arriving in store, and where is it? Now, you'll see there, they took a photo, it processed it, it audited it. To actually get that, to achieve that scenario, what you're seeing behind me at the moment is how you train an AI model. You take a whole lot of pictures, you input it into Power Apps, the Power Platform rather, and you start training the model. Okay? Really, really simple. Citizen devs, being able to achieve some functions that used to be really pro-dev intensive. What you're seeing there is once we've trained the model, you're able to put it in on the form, and there we go. That example that we've just seen, we're able to do that in a couple of minutes. The video's obviously been sped up a little bit, but go and try this afterwards. Okay? Amazing scenarios that you can start picking up there. If you talk to a lot of people about how long it takes to do a stock take and how much slippage, how much error there is there, huge amounts of value that can be realized just by using the tools we have available today. So let's think about the tools that we have today, and one of the things that I myself am quite guilty of is that we often create the latest and greatest, but we won't put a lot of rigor behind it, meaning we haven't thought of all the scenarios. And this is often true when we're innovating. By design, we're not going to cover for all of the scenarios. The platform comes to our help here again. And again, we're focusing on some of the technical sides of things so that the user adoption here goes up so that the organization is able to embrace that. You'll see that there's built-in solution checking, and we'll see an example, but ultimately, the platform's able to help you identify scenarios where you may have extended it in a way that's not upgradable. We know that with cloud services being provided today that we're on a constant update process, and if you develop things that are outside of the norm, it's going to create some technical debt, it's going to make it harder to support those going forward, so we try and avoid it. Here's the system helping us avoid that, making suggestions how we can potentially code, whether we're low code or pro code, how we can do that function even better. So as you see them here, let's have a look what that looks like. We've got little sets of functionality over here, and as part of the platform, we're going to be able to see we've run the checker, and what we'll see eventually is that we're going to see the results. And we're going to see a lot of files here, extensions to the low-code platform, where our IT pros and our pro devs are sort of adding extra capability. We can start ranking them by the severity. And those of you familiar with Visual Studio will start recognizing this is a very similar pattern to what they have there. And even further, when we're going into the enterprise and including this as part of an ALM strategy, we can see that common tasks out of our pipelines here, our CI/CD pipelines, continuous integration, continuous development, delivery, whatever you want to call it, there they are right there. So spending time actually getting these apps into the organization in a consistent fashion, that's not a challenge either. And this really starts to highlight that while we've got a low-code platform, we do actually have the breadth of Microsoft that can help us as part of this as well. Spoke a little bit about governance. A big challenge we see with organizations when they embrace low-code platforms and innovation is they've got a whole lot of usually specific client data that is sensitive. So how do we make sure that this isn't just getting out and hacks are happening and that people are distributing important information by accident? Now, with the data breaches and the penalties associated to that, that's a major concern for a lot of people, legal in particular, but a lot of the C-suite are worrying about that as well. Not to worry, we've got a scenario here where, again, the platform's going to help us classify what these connectors, what these apps, and what this data is used for, and how we can promote citizens devs, but do so in a safe way. And that's through the governance strategies there, and we're going to dive down a little bit into them. And the first one is around identity management. Just about no better product on the planet than Azure Active Directory, multi-factor authentication, there's all sorts of sort of security compliance. Do yourself a favor, have a look on Microsoft security website and see how many transactions they are processing every day. And they provide one of the securest clouds in the world. So that's on the backbone, making sure that users can only do what they have to and that the devices are secure. It works with things like Intune so you can manage the devices as well. So this is rolling out at scale. That's taken care of. What's the next most common one we see? The data prevention policies. I was just talking about this, where we need to ensure that while these apps are being created, that they're using data in a structured way, that they're using data that can be proactive for the organization rather than resulting in some sort of data breach or some sort of compliance issue. So you can see how the connectors and the apps can be classified there, whether they're business data only or they're not allowed to use that business data at all. And a good example is in an outbound marketing campaign, you probably don't want a whole lot of billing data or accounts receivable data being shipped out to the internet and say, hey everybody, this is what our customers owe us. Okay? It can lead to some embarrassing scenarios as well as some regulatory fines. For those more on the IT administrator and IT pro side, there's a lot of automated control here. We don't want to have to spend our times getting in the way of people innovating. The low-code platforms there are to enable everyone, not get in the way. So as an IT administrator, how do we do that? And we've got 3 common functions there, and primarily we've got a centralized admin console where all of the Power Apps and all of the flows and the Power Automates we were talking about earlier, those are centrally contained, so we can manage that. And Microsoft's been kind enough and realized that there's a scenario where we need to have a center of excellence approach, where we can govern this but ultimately encourage it. So they provide some templates to help us embrace that into the organization. We can talk about that a little bit later, where we've actually realized this for a number of clients. And it grows exponentially. It starts at 1 and 2, and by the time it's 6 months, it's over 5,000 users. It's insane. At the same time, there's a lot of us that still use PowerShell today. If that's your technique of choice for your organization, complete flexibility there as well. This is Microsoft. They got a lot of bases covered. So just because you may not believe me and we're building the future, let's go back to DOS. Let's go back to a command line interface and have a look. Now, there's a lot of people that still use this as a day-to-day productivity tool in terms of achieving their functions. So why are we going to move away from this? We want people to embrace this. It's more on the pro dev side of things, but what we're going to see here is we can create extensions to the platform that are relevant to us. Now, this is not something typically that a citizen dev would do, but this is typically something that a citizen dev would leverage. So we can see how the organization is starting to come together. For you, those of you functional people, this is what code looks like. This is what goes on in the background. Guys in dark rooms usually code it. No, I'm only kidding there. But there's a lot of organizational people that are focused just around writing code and doing this well. So we can see that it's busy building here. This is how we can create components and extensions for that platform. And that's our pro devs and our citizen developers working together in unison. Bet you didn't think you'd see that today at Building the Future. So what does this actually look like? We've been focusing on low code. We've been focusing on Power Apps in particular, and you'll see that at the top there. But we realize that as part of the platform, all of those components below it are critical components too. And we usually have lots of specialty within the organization focusing on little bits of that. Now, ideally, we don't want to create the silos again. We want to embrace what's going in the organization. And working together here, this is what the low-code platform facilitates. And you may think, oh, I've got to open up Visual Studio, I've got to have DBAs, database administrators, and really complex people. Yes, you do. You've probably got them, but let's go and see how this can be even simplified in terms of low-code. Support in terms of our developer community. We know that Microsoft's got one of the best environments available in Visual Studio to go and do code. There's extensions there to help us do this quickly. And it supports a number of web APIs, meaning it's a SaaS service. It's provided over the internet. We can use that. Further, and this is starting to give you an idea from a technical capability how we're able to extend this. You can see on the left-hand side that we usually citizen dev side of things. We're able to customize business apps on the go, on the fly. We saw the Pepsi example already. You know, that takes a couple of minutes, if not hours. As we start going further and further to the right, it gets more complex. But it also starts involving more and more roles throughout the organization. Until we're getting right to the right-hand side where we start going into the command line and the scary code for some of you that was just on the screen. So for those technical in the audience, this is actually what's going on behind the scenes. We typically see the top level there, which is the client level, what's going on there. It looks pretty. It's facilitating our business process. But there's a lot behind the scenes where we can tailor these products, particularly in the low-code scenario, to absolutely meet our business process. Out of the box isn't going to meet everybody, so we need to tailor it. Good examples on the Avanade side that we can talk to you about later where we have done this. Common skills, lots of governance and security built in on top of a consistent data layer. The next most common question we get in terms of this extensibility is how do we integrate it with our existing ecosystem? We're going to talk about some of the custom connectors, but we might already have integration patterns, ETL as they're commonly known, scenarios. And we can see there that we can go with, sort of common custom type of scenarios, okay? Request and response patterns, that's sitting on the left-hand side. Going even further, and as we go more enterprise, we're sort of getting into logic bus. Okay? We're getting into those distribution layers, we're getting into ETL proper. and ultimately we can build webhooks as well. So that may not be familiar and it may not sound like something that's critical to a low-code platform, but it absolutely is. It's how you take a business unit application and you grow it out into a mission-critical, enterprise-wide application. So a good example that I thought I'd just show you, and we started this off, talking about an example in the financial services industry where you may have a 50-year-old system that doesn't have a gateway and doesn't have the ability to get the data out into this world, into this low-code platform world. So we're going to show you an example quickly here where we're looking at the middle here, and we're going to be able to use this low-code platform, okay, in a very sort of graphical interface-based way to go and create a custom connector, storing credentials, secure connection, and you're going to use a token store so that you can continually roll this out for your entire organization. This little video is courtesy of a friend and colleague of mine, Vivek. He's based in the US, and he decided that for his particular scenario, he wanted to connect to Spotify. There wasn't a connector available for him, so he decided, let's have a look, let's go and create this. Now, you may say, what's the purpose in this? And I was having a think of where is this a good scenario? And if you think of a salesman who's just walked into the building, signed a massive deal, you could potentially have a power app for him, play a song, We Are the Champions, or something like that. Just something trivial, but this guy's suddenly going to feel amazing. Or you could have an important client coming in and you know that they're a fan of a particular type of music. You could have that playing softly throughout the office. Okay? Really trivial examples, but it could get far more comprehensive. What you've seen there is hopefully just a user clicking through. Okay? No code so far. We've been creating a connector, drag and drop. What we're doing here is we're creating actions. There's going to be a request and a response pattern, all typical things we used to have to write code for. It's gone today. This has now taken us, roughly a minute or such like. You're going to see the patterns start loading up now. That's your connector created. So think of scenarios in your organizations today where you have this challenge. Should it really be a challenge? And I would say to you, no, it shouldn't. You've just seen how it can be solved and incorporated into this ecosystem, which is going to generate value for you. So let's talk about value. And you may say, okay, this all sounds great, but is it actually a reality? Are we using this today? Are customers using this today? And the short answer is yes. You're going to see some incredible stats behind us. The first one, and my favorite one, there's over 2.5 million developers that are using this platform. And we talk of the term developers generically. Citizen devs, pro devs, and in between. They're all part of this platform together. In terms of some executions, you saw some of those Power Automates, the flows, sort of the workflow orchestration engine. Over 4 billion runs a month. 4 billion, okay, for this technology. I'm not going to drain the slide, but another important one that you'll see there is 485 billion calls are going to this platform every month. I mean, that's an incredible number. It's designed for scale, it's never fallen over, and it's performant. We see the data there as well. So it really is sort of unmatched in its scale. And with all of those stats in mind, I hope you've taken note of a couple of them. We're from Avanade. We're a partner in the Microsoft ecosystem. We make this stuff real. So you've seen some of those numbers. We've got a number of customers where we've been doing this, and we've been doing it successfully for them. I encourage you to come and talk to us, but just in case you've got some time during the conference, go and look up the likes of Virgin Media, Heathrow Airport out of London, SNCF, Schlumberger. There's a huge amount of examples out there where the team have started really, really small, grown it out, and these platforms, these low-code platforms, have been critical to their business today. They operate on them, they use them every single day, and they've got thousands, if not tens of thousands of users using them on a daily basis. There's a great example that we can elaborate on further if you come and visit us, a company out of the US where they started a POC with two users, and as I mentioned, within 6 months, they were over 5,000 users. They had 200 apps in the example. They were using, their entire IT landscape was involved, and they were generating that value. They're looking to expand that by multiples of teams at the moment. So it really is growing well. We've got a few minutes for questions, if anyone's brave enough to contribute one. Not at the moment. Hopefully they were all answered there. But thank you very much for your time and your attention, and enjoy the rest of your conference.
Thank you.